So that fire doesn't necessarily need to be crazy, like I'm motivated, I'm hungry to do this. It can just be like, I'm doing this right now, I'm enjoying it. And that's okay. As long as you're not dreading waking up in the morning. There's other things in your life that you could probably change before work.
Let's start this thing, fool. Hello, I'm Sam.
And I'm Amelia.
Welcome back to Artsy Joy Podcast where we aim to build better mindset for better relationships.
Yeah, and this week we're going to touch a little bit on mindset and just the perspective around career changes, because I know that there's quite a lot of people out there who are kind of unsure if they're in the right line of work. Is it fulfilling enough for them, or what's it like to change their careers and hop into a new industry essentially, and they're just unsure of what that's like and don't feel confident in changing. And hardest part of any journey, regardless if it's like career, family, friends, and the hardest part is feeling that you have to start again.
Yeah. Disrupting your current career pathway. But not only that, it's just rebuilding the network from scratch, from the beginning, essentially.
Yeah. But I wanted to start off with this one quote that I heard, and it actually did change my perspective and my train of thought around change and starting again. And the quote is that you're not really starting from scratch. You're actually starting over with experience. Because everything you've done in the past, it's all part of the experience and all part of the journey. And it's something that you've learned and you can still carry it over. So I thought that was really strong.
Yeah, no. And what better to bring in someone who is a long lost friend. His name is Brendan from Atelier Natural Lines.
Yep. My name is Brendan McAdam. I'm the director of Atelier Natural Lines, an interior design studio located here in Brisbane, specializing in contemporary residential interior design.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Yep. So Brendan will be joining us in this conversation to share your experiences, right? But most importantly, discuss, why it's okay to make change in your career path.
It's never too late to change as well. So we'll start off, Brendan, giving us a little background of what your journey has been like.
From the get-go, mate.
From the get-go.
From as soon as we finished high school, what was it? What was it like?
As a lot of you don't know, Sam and I went to high school together. After school, I was sort of a bit lost in what I wanted to do, so I decided to do a diploma of business. I didn't pay a lot of attention during school, so I didn't have like the best grades or anything. And I relate that back to not being passionate enough about the subjects that I was doing. Once I started doing this diploma of business, I realized that I really enjoyed the topics. I really enjoyed the subject matter of running and operating your own business. And that's really what the diploma of business was all about. So I took that information and I was like, okay, well, this is a fantastic course. And I decided that I wanted to dig deeper into the field of business and move into a Bachelor of Business. So I started the course of Bachelor of Business and I soon realized that this was not for me at all. I thought, what the hell am I doing? This is completely different to the subject matter that I was learning during the diploma of business, where this fire was lit underneath me. I was like, shit, yeah, I want to run my own business. And I found myself doing this Bachelor of Business, understanding that this isn't for people that want to run a business. It's for people that are working for someone else within a business. And after a year of umming and ahhing and not really understanding that you should just move out of this, I guess I quickly understood that it wasn't for me and I needed to move on. I had family members that had been in the military previously, and I know a big advocate for me was my grandma, was very supportive of me joining the Australian Army. I spent 4 years serving the Australian Defence Force, and it had many ups and downs, and overall it was a fantastic experience, and I wouldn't have changed it. To give you a brief summary of the other things that progressed to where I am today was I worked within a construction squadron during the Army. I soon started learning about carpenters, electricians, plumbers as jobs within the world, not really taking much notice of it before. I was sort of learning the field of understanding that, hey, construction, it was like a seed that was planted in my mind. It wasn't something that I was like, okay, I'm doing that. It was something that was planted in my mind that later came to fruition later on. I moved from the army after that to continue doing a Bachelor of Business.
Went back into what you
backwards.
didn't want to do.
Yeah, it was like the never-ending circle of understanding what I actually wanted to do in life. I love the army, and I advocate for anyone that would want to actually join the army. But personally, I wanted more than what I was actually getting out of my experience within the military. I decided to do the Bachelor of Business, and 6 months later, I was questioning, what the hell am I doing again? This hasn't changed. I'm getting way better grades. I'm way more mature, way more dedicated to the work that I'm actually doing. This isn't for me. Focusing on the idea that I have always been creative, but never realizing that you could actually do a creative job. I've seen obviously artists, musicians, but design was always one of those things that sort of felt like that was one of those options, something that you really had to be gifted or something that you really had to have a massive opportunity to start. But after the Bachelor of Business, I was like, okay, well, just give it a go. So I started a Bachelor of Interior and Spatial Design when I was located in Sydney. I instantly recognized that I absolutely loved it. And I was like, holy shit, this is for me.
Yeah.
I was getting way better grades. Maybe it's because I'm passionate about it, and maybe because I'm actually devoting myself. But now I'm creating a design project from scratch with my own thoughts and ideas. And it really sparked this fire, exactly the same as when I did the diploma of business.
So when you were in the army and then
Mhm.
you said that you figured out that you're a creative person, was
Yeah.
there something particular that kind of made you realize you're a creative person?
I always been fond of art.
Mm.
During my time in the army, I actually spent my pastime doing art.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So utilizing the medium of a canvas and spray cans, funny enough,
Nice.
without understanding what real art was, but then creating what I liked and what thought was good, and then even giving that art to colleagues of mine and letting them put it on their walls, just as
That's
as like a
awesome.
little
Cool.
gift kind of thing.
Yeah.
Mm.
But apart from that, I always understood that I liked doing things with my hands more than sitting in front of a computer.
Theories
Yeah,
or-
exactly.
Yeah. Do you have those artworks till this day?
I don't actually.
Oh.
Yeah, they are long gone.
Oh.
This
Could
is a
be
long.
worth
This is a
a few
decade ago.
thousand.
They're probably worth millions now.
Yeah.
Maybe if I was a bit more famous, but
Mm.
currently no one knows me, and that's okay with me.
Mm. Yeah, one thing I wanted to throw in though that I forgot to mention because I was reading up about change of work and the stress of that, and I actually read up that the biggest reasons why people do change is failing, and it's just like what other people might think, or
Mm.
they're like too old, or wasting their previous experience. Like they've spent so much time studying a certain thing and are just wasting the experience away, and also just the uncertainty. Did
Mhm.
you feel any of that when you were making the change?
You've always got to have some uncertainty in regards to doing something new. If you've never experienced a situation in your life, you're never going to know what it's going to be like until you've actually done it
Mm,
and given it a go more than once.
yeah.
When I very first started, I wasn't a good designer, but over time, I've learned and grown to become a good designer. Now I actually really like it and love it. I loved it before, but now I love it even more.
Yeah.
I know these little tiny different things that people don't know, and then I'm like experiencing it in a totally different way in comparison to what I did when I very first started. And that all relates to that very beginning of
Mm.
uncertainty. It builds on you, you grow. It's like upgrading another level.
Yeah, as you kind of work on it, you build more confidence into whatever you're doing, and the uncertainty just becomes
Fades away.
smaller. Yeah,
Yeah.
smaller and smaller. Did you have any of the other fears as well, like wasting your experience, or it's too late to change?
I think it's inevitable to have those thoughts for your entire life.
Mm.
Personally, if I still sometimes think, oh, what if I was a photographer? I've gone down the path that I am now. and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah.
Because of the things that I've learned in my life that have made me realize that you need to stick to something. But then at the end of the day, if there's something that you really want to do and you've already given it a really good go, the other projects or whatever that you wanted to do, a good go, then it's okay to move on. And I've even got friends now that are much older than myself starting to study architecture, for example.
True.
And you can start architecture or any career change you want later on. I've known family members that have retired at the exact same age that this person is now going into uni and starting a new career.
Yeah.
You can do any job you want at any age you want. The 20s and 30s don't define what you do for the rest of your life. It's what you are actually motivated to do during that period of time. And then if you move past that constraint of telling yourself you can't do something and telling yourself that, hey, you know, anything is really actually possible within your limits, then, you know, just do it.
Yeah, so like just removing that limiting belief and also just going for what serves you at that point in time.
Yeah. Have you had some uncertainty during a career that you've had?
Yeah, like at the moment, the last few years, I think we've mentioned it a few times in some of our previous episodes, but for me, it's like, it's not that I want like a full industry change or anything, but in the creative industry, I started as a graphic designer working in marketing industry. So I got exposed to so many different sub pathways. So like social media, digital marketing, like graphic design, UX, UI, and I had so many paths. And because the role that I had touches on all of them, and I'm such a curious person to the point that I love each and every one of these paths. But the difficulty is like eventually, like you say, you kind of have to stick to one thing or have to lean towards one way. And it's, to me, it's which way do I lean? And if I go one way, like what if I don't end up liking it? And what if that goes down to wrong path and I'm wasting years in one way? Then I have to try another direction. So it's a bit of that uncertainty where it's like, I don't know which way I want to go. That's me right now.
It's like the serial studier who spends their entire life moving from degree to degree and then never really sticking one through. You know, maybe obviously there's some people in the world that are a lot more privileged in comparison to others where they have the ability to study in their entire life and never have to work. Fantastic. That's not me. I'm unsure about you guys.
Nah,
You guys are still
that's
working
not
as
me.
well.
Yeah.
So in the same position, to be a part of society, we need to work. And we really need to choose something to be able to actually continue being a part of society and then continuing to build our lives at the same time.
Yeah, and it's also hard to build on a skill or be specializing in something if you're chopping and changing or like doing a bit of this and doing a bit of that and you're kind of like everywhere. So yeah, I agree with you. Eventually you have to kind of choose one thing and just go with it and give it your all. And once you've given it your all and you still feel like maybe there's something else for you out there, try a different path after that.
Yeah, it's kind of like similar to me, but mine's more within the same industry, you'd say. So, you know, it's one of those moments where you think, shit, you know, you've been doing it for fucking how long ever? Yeah, that's your skill. That's what you've been honing on. And it gets to a point where you're like, well, yeah, you still enjoy it, right? You still love to a certain extent of what you do, but there's an element of it that you just don't have that spark like that you had, right, Brennan? So for me, it's kind of like, well, okay, do I go sideways within the same industry or do I continue to push on knowing that, yeah, I don't 100% love it, but do I enjoy it? Yeah, I get, you know, when you get success, you have, you know, you have that gratitude, you appreciate it more. So I'm kind of in that moment where I'm like, shit, what the fuck do I do?
Yeah, and it's also finding that balance of actually being happy in your job and also just doing it for the sake of paychecks and having to pay for your mortgage and being able to pay for your living. And it's like that fine balance because you want to have a bit of both, but sometimes it's hard to have a bit of both.
That's a very valid point of you still need to be able to pay the bills.
Yeah.
Especially at our age. I have a friend that's close to me that wanted to do, I have a lot of architecture friends, to do architecture, but he's a bit older now. It's not the same guy. He's a bit, he's a bit older.
Yeah.
And he wanted to do architecture. I guess in a way, I convinced him to do architecture. And he started studying, and a couple of weeks later, he stopped because he started thinking, oh, maybe I can't afford the bills. I have a mortgage. I need to pay off the house. I really need to get out of this game of trying to do other things and just stick to what I know. I honestly believe that is the wrong approach. He's already got a house. He is paying off the mortgage, but during the recent incline in housing market, he is potentially well off at the moment. So you always have options of doing things like that. Maybe financially, investment wise, that's not the best choice. But if you had the opportunity to do a different career path because you hated the original career path that you were doing, for example, finance. Not saying that finance is a bad career or anything. So Sam,
Well, the finances are going to jump out at you.
but for him, he is a creative person. He didn't like his job. He's been doing it for 10 years. He has a house already. He has the ability to move on from that. But because he has this mortgage that's holding him down, it was a sort of like he was giving himself excuses to not do it. But ultimately, it's the fear of when you're rocking up the very first day of uni and you see everyone's 18 years old and you're 35, that would freak you out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, where's all the older guys that are doing this who having this midlife crisis like me?
Yeah.
Not a midlife crisis.
I'm
but
sure there'd be a few, right?
no, there is though.
Yeah.
There is. You just got to find them. You got to seek them out.
And like it's just also pushing yourself out of the comfort zone, right? Because that's what he knows and he's comfortable and he knows that that's safe. But sometimes pushing yourself out there to get yourself to do it so that further down the track you're not miserable because you're actually in a happier place.
Yeah. So obviously if you're in a situation where financially 10 years down the line, holding onto that house is going to be better for you, and then you start that degree maybe 10 years later, absolutely fine as well.
Yeah.
But if you just hold on to that thought, man, I wish I was an architect, or I wish I was an artist, and you just never do it, well, you're going to be sitting on your deathbed and you're going to be like, fuck, did I do with my life?
Yeah. But actually, another research that we found was this person ranked the different things or reasons of stress.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the highest ones is mourning the death of a good friend, right?
Mm-hmm.
But changing your line of work or your career of work comes second. So that actually shows how high and how stressful it is when you're trying to change your career. So it kind of makes sense in terms of like, for example, your friend.
It's got to wear on you, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you wouldn't really think about those statistics because
that's to marry it next to mourning a death of your friend. That's quite significant.
Yeah, that's pretty fucking hectic.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't have thought that those are the things that happen every bloody day. The impact of just your career has such a heavy weight on your well-being, and it's pretty scary. It's pretty scary to know that if you're not happy, if your mental health is not there, you've really got to make that change to suit your lifestyle.
Yeah.
If you think about, if we're talking about numbers, if you're spending a couple hours a night watching TV, and then over a week, you're watching 15 hours in total, and then an entire lifetime of watching TV, now you're looking at a quarter of your entire life. And then now you do the numbers for work. Are you spending 40 hours or 100 hours a week? You really need to understand, yes, money is money, business is business, but you got to do what you love.
Because that takes up such
a huge chunk of your life.
Yeah, massive time.
It's gone.
Even just your day. It's like your whole entire day. So if you're going to do that and you're not happy in that, you're just unhappy for most of your day, technically. Every single day, Monday to Friday, Monday to Saturday, whatever days you work.
If you spend the entire weekend dreading going to work on Monday morning, well, you're going to have a shit weekend.
Yeah.
I don't think necessarily anyone really wants to go to work. But once you find a passion that you're like, okay, I could do this, or something that really drives you, or you think it doesn't even need to be actually a passion, but something that pushes you, challenges you, something that can motivate you to go hard and make you a better person later on, well, that's beneficial as well.
Yeah. So you're saying that when you were doing the army, like you loved it, but it wasn't fulfilling. What was something that pushed you to leave army and then go back into studying or find your career path?
It was the yelling.
Yeah.
No.
Get up, 6 a.m.
I really liked the structure of the army. I've found great structure within my life. I think it really works well for me. Routine is one of the biggest benefits to my life that I've experienced. Every time I go out of routine, things start to slide. If I'm not working out regularly, if I'm not like sticking to a structure of my work day, for example, taking regular meal breaks, for example. It all things start to slide, yes. So obviously I learned a lot about myself during the military, but I guess some of the things for me just weren't adding up. You know, obviously, as much as you got to be passionate about something, we need to get paid as well. And the military wasn't paying me enough to stick around.
And you still had that big driver for the creative side because you're like drawing and doing all those arts on the side as well.
Yeah, correct.
And I also heard heard of some interesting stories. After you left the army, you had some pretty interesting journeys and adventures while you're becoming an architect and also now interior design. So you went to Paris, I heard. So tell us a little bit about some of the adventures and some projects that you did while you were there.
The good old adventures.
So I moved to Paris. So, it was 3.5 years ago, and with my wife. I was married 7 years ago. Well,
Wow.
4 years ago now. In 2019, and that was the same year I transitioned over to France. I didn't know how to speak French. I didn't know too much about the culture apart from what I learned from my wife.
So she's French?
Yeah, it was a big shock to arrive in a country that you can't communicate with anyone. Yes, there's people over there that speak English, but ideally you want to speak French. So being over there I actually did try to start my own business when I very first arrived because I was like, no way is someone else going to hire me because I don't speak French, right?
Yeah, because I heard that they're very adamant on having people that can speak French in their jobs, like hiring people. Is that true?
I guess it depends on who you're working for. So I got the privilege of working for a design company over there called Atelier, and they'd been operating for the last 50 years.
Wow.
So they're
Long-term.
long-term design, got lots of experience. It was a great opportunity. And I got to be involved in very interesting projects.
Yeah. Did you want to share a few of those interesting projects?
So the company that I worked for, the design agency, we designed retail stores for Hermes. So in English, that's Hermes.
Yeah.
So
How do you pronounce it?
Hermes.
Hermes.
So the H is silent. And then you
Hermes.
got to roll the R.
Mm.
You know, I can't confidently say that I speak fluent French now, even after being there for 3.5 years. I guess that's another thing. Oh, people will be like, oh, so you know how to speak French. Man, I didn't know anything when I rocked up. Like, how am I had to, it was honestly in the last year that I was in France that I really started picking it up a lot more. And the funny thing is when you're working in an international agency, which is what RDAE was, yes, there is a lot of people that speak English, but bad English. So the projects very difficult to work on if you're not communicating.
Yeah, because with design, you have to want to understand what people want, how they feel, you know, like even feedback, trying to understand that'd be quite difficult.
So the MS projects that I worked on were all around the world. I worked on projects in China, Mexico, in America, Guam, the island, parts of Europe, in Russia, and St. Petersburg. I never got to visit these places.
Damn it.
In my own time, I visited some of them. In RDAE, it was different. So a lot of design firms, you'll have a lead designer, and then they pass the design on to the workers, and then they will go off and draft it and finish the drawings and present the work, and then the lead designer, it's very much similar, I guess, to graphic design. The lead designer will go back and red mark it or pen it, and you need to change this or whatever. It's very rare that it comes back with no remarks.
Always.
Yeah.
There's something to review.
Yeah, something's wrong if it does. And you're like, oh my God. No. They didn't even look at it. Like,
yeah, haven't had time.
So, but at RDAE, they had a philosophy of everyone was a designer. Everyone was involved in the design. Everyone was involved in the drafting. So yes, you did have lead project managers who had the overall say, but they really listened to every single person.
That's really good.
That's good.
The environment there was one of the best working environments I've ever worked in.
Nice.
It was stress-free. The working environment was, I guess, abnormal in comparison to other workspaces. They gave us a lot of freedom, even working hours. So apart from Hermes retail stores, which was a primary role of RDAE, I also designed a university in Berlin And then there was a state library in Stockholm. There was some other interesting projects such as competitions, but then also some furniture design projects for very high-end clients that we had living in America.
Wow.
That's cool. And then you know how you're doing high-end furniture. Give us a glimpse of what the damage would be to if you were to buy something like that.
Okay. I would like to explain first what I guess depicts the difference between high-end and then just furniture that you can buy. Not that it's not good quality, but there's some differences. Firstly, you'll have the materials that are chosen by the designer that are very specific to someone that's actually using that furniture. And a lot of high-end furniture is designed for individuals. So it won't be mass produced. Either it'll be like art based, like something that looks incredible, but you might not use it. But then it'll just sit pretty in the middle of a room in an apartment that you visit every summer when you're traveling to the Riviera in the southern France or something. The kind of furniture that you can't just get from IKEA. Like it's furniture that is very specifically made for individuals. And then if you think about the amount of hours that goes into the design of something, and furniture design can take anywhere between 6 to 12 months for really iterating and refining the design. And then you've got to understand the finding someone to build it. So you can design all you want, but if then it can't be built, well, it's not worth anything. But if you work with other artisanal carpenters that have worked with other similar high-end design projects that are able to do the most creative work possible, you're going to have a really interesting piece at the end of it. That's not just like a square table with 4 chairs around it. You're looking at everything from the thickness of the materials that are the composition, how the light sits on it, the colors, everything. And then if you take all that into consideration, you then take into the design cost and then also the cost of the manufacturing, just the labor. And then you've got to consider the actual material costs. So where did that material come from? Are we talking about a material, birch wood, it's coming from Finland? Or are we talking about urchin seashells that are coming from the Philippines?
Seashells.
So the urchins have long spikes. In one project that I worked on, they cut the spikes and created slithers.
What?
And then formed the resin around the urchin seashells to create a 3 mil thick material that was like $3,000 a square meter or something.
Crazy.
Because it was all handmade.
What?
Yeah.
So you think about something, a machine making it in comparison to someone hand making something. Well, no, we're talking about a different type of money.
Yeah. That's awesome.
When you take into all those costs, the factors, you're going to be looking at thousands and thousands of dollars. Not $500 for a chair. We're looking at $5,000 to $15,000. There's a really interesting online store called The Invisible Collection. It is located based in the UK and they work with high-end designers. So if you guys really are interested in finding out how much high-end furniture costs,
I'm going to look
you
this
can
up.
look up theinvisiblecollection.com
Yeah.
and then click on any designer. It doesn't matter because they're all very either very similar priced or wow.
Oh, geez.
And what's really interesting about being a designer or a craftsman, designing the project that someone else is purchasing, you're never going to be able to fit. You work in the field to design for other people. And then you look at the projects and furniture, for example, that you're designing for other people and you're like, holy shit, I would love that, but you will never be able to get it. And it's sort of like this dreaded realization of either I'm working for someone to create this design and produce this furniture to give it to someone else who is a lot wealthier than you. Yeah.
What's the most expensive furniture you've ever made or designed for?
The piece that I specifically worked on for a client in Miami, it was 20,000 euro.
Holy moly.
So it was pretty pricey.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the most expensive item within that apartment.
Oh, really?
Oh.
What was that item? The 20,000?
That specifically was a console. So you can, if you can imagine a thin table that sits either behind
like a couch
or against the wall.
Door.
Yeah, correct.
Wow.
In a lobby, you wouldn't,
20,000.
not like a standard house lobby.
Yeah.
Yep. Big ass.
Yeah.
Big ass hallway.
You've got like this massive void looking out to
Yeah.
the sky. And
Yeah.
it's like, whoa. It's items, pieces that are just like, holy shit, this is incredible to look at. And that's where you get the idea of, I guess, Birkin bags and Louis Vuitton bags.
Yeah.
Very expensive bags. Do you want them because of the design or because of how expensive they are?
Yeah.
And the name.
That's really cool.
Yeah,
But
that's true.
while working over there and working for high-end clients or high-end agency, I know that you said that the agency was really chill, really relaxed, but what was the mindset and what was it like in terms of just working? Was there like pressure when you were doing these projects or?
I seem to work really well in high stress situations.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. If there's no pressure, I'm just like, it's fine.
Personally, I always tend to look at a situation where I know the quantity of work I need to do. This is the due date. Let's get it done.
Yeah, I'm the
I'm
same.
not like, holy shit, this is too much
There's
work.
so much stuff.
Yeah. The cortisol is pumping in me. Like I'm just sort of, I know what to do. I'm confident in doing it. Let's just get it done. And it's the same with building a skill. It's the same with developing anything, design or building a house, anything. It takes time.
Yeah. So did you have to build that confidence or that kind of train of thought, or were you always like that?
I remember noticing that I had that when I was in the army. I remember a sergeant saying to me, we had a lot of work at the time, why aren't you stressed out? Why aren't you like all across the walls and crawling around like crazy like I am? And I'm like, I just got the work here and I'm doing it. Like, I can't work any faster than what I am. And I'm already working fast.
Yep.
So what do you want me to do?
Yeah. That's the best mindset though.
Yeah.
I think so. Once you start going to this level of stress, you start missing things, you start losing details. Things get missed, mistakes get made.
Yeah.
It's good to remember to take a breath, just do the work and be in the moment.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's a skill set that not many people ever have, to be able to be like, hey, put you in a high intensity type of environment where there's a lot of stress, a lot of pressure, but for you to be able to go, hey, okay, this is my target. This is what I need to get to. And you just shutting off everything and just focusing. And I feel like that's a skill set that is just really hard to really hone in and learn. Because even for me, man, like I consider myself relatively all right at handling like pressure and stress. But even at times when you go, oh, fuck, someone's dropped a bomb on me, I got to get my shit sorted. And then you have that element of thought in your mind where you're like, okay, shit, where do I start first? Or lost for a direction at times. As human nature, we have those moments where we kind of go, oh, fuck, what are we doing?
Just that sense of urgency, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's really rare for me to feel that sense of urgency. I think I'm more like you, where it's just like, okay, there's all these things that we need to do. It's just like, how should I tackle it? Like my strategy is just more like, okay, where should we go? It's not like, oh my God, I have this, this, and this. Oh my God, I need this. And then like, how people start to scramble. I'm just like, okay, we've got this. This is the list. There could be like all different types of tasks, but it's just like, you kind of just have to take one task at a time. And then once you tackle through it, you'll be fine.
Consistency.
Yeah.
Nice. I like that.
But I love that mindset.
Yeah.
And then just going back into your career transition and just changing from army to architecture to now interior design. I know there's a bit of a crossover, but were there any challenges that happened throughout that journey or something that you didn't foresee that kind of like took you back a little bit?
So I haven't always actually been in the design field.
Yeah.
So I've had a pretty diverse career. Been within the same field, but I've done a few different things within that field that have gained me the knowledge and the meta skills, you could say, to be the person I am today. So when I finished architecture, I moved into construction. So I worked for a company called Multiplex, and I was like, okay, well, yes, I've done design for the last 3-4 years. Should I now move into construction as doing construction management? And I just sort of took the opportunity with both hands because I was like, well, I'm still in the same field. I'm still working towards inevitably what I want to become, a great designer and someone that actually produces good work. And being in construction management really helped me understand from the separation of what design drawings are to what they are on the job site. I guess one of the biggest challenges was understanding that potentially construction wasn't for me. And maybe design was, because I was working with designers on those projects and I was looking at the work that they were doing and then I was looking at the work I was doing. Yes, I loved what I was doing. And I was like, I was passionate about design in the first place. Yes, I'm doing construction as a stepping stone to further myself in my career, but where am I going with this?
Yeah.
So then and it was an easy leap to go from construction to architecture for me because my wife was in France and I needed to move to France to be with her. And moving from construction, I wasn't going to work in construction in France because if most likely a lot of the workers that I'd be working with in project management or construction or buildings over there, they would speak French or a completely different language because Europe is so like everyone from everywhere is just everywhere.
Yeah.
It's not just French people in France. There's huge diversity, different cultures, different languages everywhere from Europe to Africa. France is like, if you really want to experience diversity, go live in France for a bit.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Do you think France, it predominantly be more French related, like whatever business and whatnot. So to think that that's the hub of where multicultural like businesses and how they do their acquisitions and stuff like that, that's pretty cool to know. And that's pretty cool how you actually went over there to begin with. No fucking French.
Well, I guess like people ask that question and it's the same thing that sort of relates to being on a career path that you might not want or like or passionate about. You just got to try something. And that was the thing for me. It was like, all right, just do it. Just try it. It was like, it wasn't like a split second decision. I thought about it. Well, obviously my wife's over there, so obviously I'm going to go over there. Yeah. But it wasn't like, I want to stay around and do multiplex. So I've done a bit of construction. I understand a bit more about this. And this is huge. Like architects, interior designers, they never got to get to work on the job site or especially like deal with trades or anything like that. So it was like a huge experience for me to be able, and huge learning curve to be able to understand that process and what actually goes into construction, which benefited me in the design world because now I'm awesome at drawing details. Yeah, I know exactly how to build the stuff.
And you've got like all the all-rounder experience and knowledge of all the different areas that touches on this design as well. So I know that you say like it sounds like you're really confident in terms of like just going and doing it and trying it. But say you're stuck between just in that period where you're like, oh, should I or shouldn't I? And just deciding whether you should change or transition. What's something that gives you the confidence to be like, yeah, I should just take that leap? Or what's the thought process?
You obviously got to weigh up your options. I'm going to relate this to paint colors. If I had 5 white paints that all looked very similar, and then I narrowed that down to two extremely similar colors. And if they're very similar options and you're like, oh, well, which choice do I make? Flip a coin.
Yeah, you kind of just have to pick one, right?
Yeah. You just really got to make a move because if you just sit there thinking about it constantly, you're never going to do anything.
That's actually really good. That's a good explanation.
Yeah. The only reason I brought that up, I saw a video of this guy with the paint swatches on brick.
Yeah.
And I was like, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like, you know what makes the decision better? It's not choosing the identical paint choice between the white paints. It's how good your project is overall. And then if you do try that new experience, new career path or whatever, it turns out to be not so great, well, go back and do the other one.
Yeah. And plus you've learned something new while you're doing that.
You learned that you didn't want to do that other one.
You learned that you don't fucking enjoy it, so get the fuck out.
But you obviously learn other skills and
No, that's actually really good and it makes a lot of sense too. It actually sounds like what I would do if I was to order at a restaurant, you know how like you just like I don't know what to take and then the waiter comes over and you're like, all right, let's just pick this one.
You can always come back.
Yeah.
Or just flip a coin, man.
Looks the same.
Just close your eyes and
yeah. You mentioned before that when you make your choices, you just basically send it, right? You go, look, I've got to make a choice.
Yeah.
So I hear this a lot all the time in just any career, whatever industry it is, it's about hunger. People say you've got to be hungry to make a win and to know the direction or to have some sort of start. You've got to have that mentality of, hey, You got to be hungry for that to chase it. Do you think that's true? And secondly, do you think you applied that mentality behind what your direction is?
I would probably disagree
Yep.
with that. The notion of having this already found hunger might exist in some people for certain things, but in other situations, it might not necessarily not. I had no idea that I would really enjoy architecture when I was doing interior design. No idea. But then when I started doing architecture, because I was moving from Sydney to Brisbane and I couldn't find any ideal interior design courses to do at the time, I transitioned to architecture. And I was like, wow, I fucking love this. It wasn't like a fire in architecture all along. It was definitely something that grew over time. Having a fire doesn't necessarily start from the beginning, but later on, once you're more experienced in that role and you've done it long enough to, know the general gist of it and you think you might be good, maybe you're not, but you might be good in your own eyes. That's all that matters, right?
Yeah. Believing in yourself.
Yeah.
And now that fire is fucking roaring and you're like, okay, well, yeah, over time it'll go and dip and that's okay. But that's what life is.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I think it would help a lot of people because I think a lot of people think that they need to find something that they love and then like just to go into that. But sometimes you really don't know. Like for me, I don't know. I'm just going with the motions really until something that's just like, yeah, this is something that I'm okay to stick with and this is okay for something that I'm happy to continue to learn. And
That's
from
right.
that, you just grow your confidence, grow your knowledge, and you just learn to love it.
And you never really need a roaring fire for a job. Like a job is, we all know what it is. We don't need to romanticize what a job is. It's a stepping stone to retirement.
Yeah.
If we had the option to retire right now, we would all do it. Maybe we'd be doing hobbies in between to keep us going. But, that's the whole part of when people like retire, for example, and they're like, I don't know what to do. Well, go do something. You don't need to work to do that one thing, but you can just go do something else. So that fire doesn't necessarily need to be crazy. Like, I'm motivated, I'm hungry to do this. I want to like build something huge. It can just be like, I'm doing this right now. I'm enjoying it. That's it, and that's okay. As long as you're not dreading waking up in the morning. If you're dreading waking up in the morning
That's
to
a
go to
different
work,
story.
yeah. There's other things in your life that you could probably change before work. Probably start exercising. Be one of them.
A bit of a side thing though,
Yep.
but what about success? Because hunger could relate to success. So I hear the same thing as well. When it comes to being successful in your career or your job, you've got to be hungry as well. Understanding what the question I initially asked was, more so hunger about transitioning or choosing the right path. But in this instance, do you think hunger is more prominent when it comes to success?
Like obviously if you're scoring goals all the time, you'd feel good.
Yeah.
It's got to make you feel good. You got like Max Verstappen, F1 world champion, 2-time world champion. He's winning. He's won the last 12 races in a row. Yeah, he feels fucking good. He's not like, this is boring.
Yeah.
This is like, this is fucking awesome. Like, I'm winning.
Yeah.
Like, you can't deny it. Being successful will make you feel good. Like if you land a new client, if you do really well on a project and now your client or your boss is like, good work, and pats you on the back and you feel good about yourself. And you're like, I want to come into work. You can't deny that obviously success will obviously increase that hunger to improve because then you're always like, man, what's next?
I think that kind of fuses into this other question though. It's like, yeah, you feel like you've achieved something. You're so happy about your achievements, like getting a new client or signing off a new deal, finishing a project and your clients are happy about it. But then sometimes when you sit back and look at the bigger picture, it's like, do I actually enjoy this role? That's kind of where I was at, let's say 2 or 3 years ago. It's like, I love all the achievements that I can make, like all the satisfaction from clients, from managers and stuff saying that you're doing really well, you do really good in your job. All the clients like, I love your work and stuff. But then over time, I do feel happy with the achievements. I love it and I love what I do. But then just thinking back into what I truly want to do, I feel happy with knowing that other people are happy. Like I can help them. I've helped achieve something that they couldn't achieve and I've made their life better in any way. and that makes me happy. But then thinking back into what do I truly want to do, it's like I don't see myself doing this for the rest of my life. And that was my question. And I was just stuck in that limbo. And it's like, where do I see myself in 5, 10 years, even though I am happy being able to help people?
It's like the perceived happiness of whatever the career it is, as opposed to what truly makes you happy. Like you said, Brendan, it's like just experiencing various different things, because the experience, the journey is what defines, or what defines really what you truly like. Because even for me, dude, like sometimes I get fucking blinded by perceived happiness. It's like you're in your job and you get a little bit of success and you're like, fuck yeah, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling G'd up.
This is the best thing in the world.
And then really after all that goes away, you're like, fuck, now what?
It's like the highs come really fast and then you're back to the lows again. You're kind of like, yeah, this is really good. And you're like, okay, now what?
On those lows, it's really important to understand what your motivation is. Whatever drives you to do something, you got to really understand what that is and why you're doing it. So you mentioned a really great motivation of helping others. And helping others is one of the reasons why I'm doing interior design. It's inherently ingrained in what I do, and exactly what you're doing, dealing with other clients, helping others. Same with you, helping other people with their finances.
Yeah.
You got to really understand those things.
Yeah, and I think that's why for me it was such a struggle. It's because the main driver is to help people. So it doesn't matter if it's social media, if it's marketing, if it's designing a website, if it's just helping with their business recommendations, like just to help them, that makes me happy. And that's why it made my choice so difficult, because all of those serves that same purpose.
Improving the lives of others.
Yeah.
Yeah, or facilitating their needs.
Yeah.
Oh, shit.
Words. So we had a really good idea of what your career was like and like all the transitions. So we just wanted to wrap it up in terms of 3 words of advice that you could share to someone who is stuck in that transition where they want to move on and try something different, but just a little bit scared to transition to a new career or just a new job or something else. What's some advice you could share?
If you're always interested in potentially changing, try before you buy. I've been the strong believer of going all in. And that's just how I've done it. But if you're really on the fence, then, give it a go. Another option was being consistent and learning something new about the role that you're actually doing, because potentially that will be all it takes for you to find something more for you, for that job to be satisfactory. So consistency within your role. The third would be ultimately to really weigh up the pros and cons. Because if you are changing careers on the whim of something, of a thought or the notion that you could be good at something else, is that realistic? So being realistic with yourself is very important. I would love to be an NBA basketball player. Will I be an NBA basketball player at the age of 33? No. So you really have to be realistic with yourself. I think that's very important.
Yeah.
With the decisions that you're making in a career path change. As a little 4th option bonus, that limiting belief of you being able to do something is easily broken down if you just try it. There's things that in my life where I've thought maybe that's not possible, like climbing a mountain, for example. Well, I've done that now.
Oh, you've climbed a mountain?
I have, yeah.
Awesome. Which one?
Mount
Everest.
It was one of the tallest mountains in Europe. It's called Mont Blanc. It's in the region of Chamonix, in the east of France. It's in the Alps, French Alps. A really great challenge. But also, once you do those challenging things, you sort of understand, well, I've done that now. You've broken down that wall of that limiting belief. What's next?
Yeah. It opens up your mind to know that and builds the confidence that you can do more or you can do something else. That's really good. I love that 4th tip. Well, that comes to the end of this episode. But before we leave, was there any links or plugs or socials that you wanted to share so people can find you?
If you'd like to check out my work and my website, you can find me on naturallines.com.au.
Nice. Well, thank you again for joining. Really appreciate the experiences and the journeys and the things that you shared today. There's heaps of people that are going through the same thing. Career path is ultimately one of the biggest conversations that most people talk about because, things change, and whatever tickles your fancy obviously differs from time to time. So thank you again.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
No, thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right. That's it for today. Thank you and bye.
Peace. It is sad to say that Brendan has made a hard decision to close Atelier Natural Lines and is continuing to venture through his journey to help other businesses in the interior design architecture world. We can't wait to see where he will continue to thrive, and have loved all the words of his advice he has provided in this episode. And thanks for joining us once again, and we'll see you guys in the next episode.